Hello, and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. So I was planning on getting out the Queen and Rana Part 2. Unfortunately, I ran into some hiccups. I'm going to have to re-record that one, so it'll probably be coming up tomorrow. But I've also been meaning to do some shorter videos, sort of as a balance with some of the longer videos. And so I thought today I'd cover a news release from the Toronto Police Service, which is noted as Public Safety Alert, McCowan Road and Eglinton Avenue East area, hazardous substance found. The reason why I want to cover this one is that it's useful information. It doesn't apply just to Toronto, so there's a lot of people who might, miss this story, but it is useful information. Although the police are also not giving the full story, and I'm not really sure why. I'm sure they have their reasons, but I suspect it's because they're worried about maybe inspiring people. And I don't think that's actually an issue, so I'm going to sort of cover this in a little bit more detail. So they note the Toronto Police Service would like to make the public aware of a hazardous substances found in a public park, which consisted of several 2-liter plastic bottles containing a white substance, which were found near a park. And they advise the contents of the bottles are combustible, considered hazardous, and should not be touched. And they say to contact police immediately should any suspicious bottles be located. They also include a picture. So there's pictures of these things. Here you see a ginger ale bottle, cap on in this particular case. You can see the sort of white crusty bits at the bottom. There's also a grape soda bottle here, again, with the kind of whitish brown sort of crust in it. Now, what they tell people is that this is a hazardous bottle, but they don't do anything to explain what this is, and why it might be found in a public park, and so forth. So I thought I might provide a little bit more detail here. What these are likely is the leftovers from somebody cooking meth. So because of some changes to laws and policies, it's become harder to get certain ingredients for meth cooking. And so there's been a shift to a certain extent from the sort of large traditional lab, which typically took place sort of outside of cities in sort of remote areas because they smell, and that smell could be recognized by law enforcement, so they don't want to do it anywhere where people might sort of detect it. And, there's a risk of explosion and so forth, so you want to be isolated so that nobody decides to come up and smoke next to your meth lab or anything like that. But because of sort of these changes, people have moved to smaller sort of portable meth labs, which take place entirely within a 2-liter bottle. So chemicals go into that bottle and meth is produced inside it. Once the sort of meth is extracted, they're left with this bottle that contains residues, which can be hazardous. They may be corrosive, and they may also be explosive, including things that can ignite and thus explode on contact with air. So when you see that bottle that's sealed shut, actually unscrewing it could be quite dangerous. So these pose a danger both to people who might collect these bottles for their deposit value, but also they pose a danger to children who have a tendency to pick things up and play with them. So you might want to pass this warning on to your kids. This isn't sort of a huge deal. This is not a major social panic, but these things are sometimes left outside and should be treated with the kind of respect and deference you'd treat to, a used syringe with, which is basically don't touch it, stay away, let somebody know who is capable of dealing with it. So I feel like that context is important here to know what's going on. When they say they should not be touched, it's because this thing could literally explode in your hands. It could catch fire in your hands. And as somebody who's actually had a really nasty burn on my hand before, you don't want any part of that. That's a really bad scene. You use your hands for everything. I was lucky. I've got, great function back in my hands, but it could have easily gone another way. I could have had, serious limitations. So again, be careful with this. Maybe, warn your kids not to touch them. Again, there's not going to be any usable meth in them because that will have been taken by the person who actually made it. They're not going to leave that behind. So, there's nothing worth having in these things. And yeah, I don't feel that this is a danger of inspiring anybody because Nobody's going to be watching this YouTube video and go, you know what? I should cook meth. I watched that Breaking Bad show and that had a happy ending for everyone involved, right? So that sounds like a great idea. No, I mean, if you were already on that path, this video and, a Toronto Police Service news release isn't going to sway you one way or the other. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like this video. Please share it with your friends, especially people who might need to know this, if they've got, kids who might play with a bottle or that sort of thing. And please subscribe to see more content. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters. I'm going to leave a link both to my Patreon as well as to the news release so you can check it out for yourself. Although I think I covered just about everything. It's not a very detailed news release. But once again, I want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level: D-Mo, Sir Daniel Wicks of Alberta, Canada's National Firearms Association, and Toronto Airsoft. At the $20 level, Cameron Johnson, Kevin Fleet, and Dale Nesbitt. And at the $10 level, Ma Buddy Keith, Process Eng, General Counsel of the CCFR, John Robinson, TR, Roy Haddock, Freckles-Dack, Jean-Alexandre Tessier, Sir Goat, Sights and Arms Limited, Chaba Hollow, Craig Kwan, Akin Coxall, North Central Process Service, Toys Are for Boys, Ian Vaughn, Milan Vrekic, Terrence Griffiths, Doug Thompson, Mark D., Brad Crooker, Jason Harrington, Lee Kiso, Mark Stout, Michelle Stotzel, Scott Sweetman, Mike Rhodes, DEF, Stacey Cartmell, Tactical Advantage TV Canada, Ian S., Dave Leslie, Juan, Stefan Conquest, Darren Duell, Sean Crane, Pete H., Ian Hutchinson, Travis, BC Bushcraft Leather, John Singarty, Misa Komarevich, All Systems Go, Ian Hedge-Danek, Hello from Venezuela, Taylor Delnea, Rod Guzman, Matthew Nesbitt, James Cox, Zip Ties and Bias Plies, Daniel Kang, Jean-Guy Toussaint, Richard, Brock Watts, Frog Clan Copper, Annika Bain, Tim McGill, Jordan Delaney, Rob Butts, Chris Joseph, Grant Farquhar, Malcolm Yogi, Andrew Elsich, Roberto Selbach, and Dimaco. Thank you once again, and I hope that you've enjoyed this content. I hope you found it useful, and I hope this has armed you with knowledge.